Harihi Om Sadashiva-samārambhām Śaṅkarācārya-madhyamām Asmadācārya-paryantām Vande Guru-paraṁparām Mūkam karoti vācālam Pangum langayate girim Yat-kripātamaham vande परमानंद माधवम। ओम। शिष्य आत्म समर्पण। कार्पण्य दोषो उपहत स्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां धर्म सम्मूढ़ चेताः यश्रेयस्यान्निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधि मां त्वां प्रपन्नम्। ओम। So we are in the 24th shloka of Bhagavad Gita, second chapter. The shloka goes like this. Achedhyoyamadahyoyam akledyoshosya evacha nitya sarvagatastanuhu achaloyam sanathanah. The meaning goes like this. Achedhyah is unbreakable or uncuttable. I am this, and also adahyah. Dahyam is to burn. Adahyam is unburnable. Again, I am. Right? Then akledyo. Akledyah means that which cannot be made, which cannot be moistened, which cannot be wet. And ashoshyah, which is that which cannot be dried up. Eva, certainly, and cha, and. Nityah, sarvagatah. Nityah is eternal or everlasting. Sarvagatah is that which goes everywhere. Contextually, all-pervading. Then sthanuhu, fix it, without any movement. Basically, it implies unchangeable. Achaloyam, achalaha ayam. Achalaha is immovable. Ayam, this, sanatanaha, eternal and everlasting. So this is the basic meaning of this shloka. Certainly, this soul is unbreakable, unburnable. The soul is insoluble and that which cannot be dried. And this soul is everlasting, all-pervading, unchangeable, and immovable. That is what, and eternally the same. And this is what Bhagavan has said in this shloka. So, if you take a look at it, the 24 and 25 are considered to be upasamharam. We have heard about it, right? Upakrama, upasamhara, nyayam. The concept of Ātman was introduced in the 12th shloka. 11th shloka, Upadesha starts, wherein Bhagavan says, you are lamenting, and you are also saying, you are also talking like Pandit, right? Those who have gone and those who have not yet gone, people don't, the Pandits don't lament about, is the way that he started it. So that was the subject. But then he directly jumped into Atmagyan in the 12th shloka. The concept of the Atmagyan in our tradition, we consider as concluding in this shloka. Okay, so the 24 and 25th in the next shloka, in these two shlokas, the summary of what has been told and conclusion is what Bhagavan is providing. The concepts have been very well analyzed. Nityaha, Sarvagataha, Sthanuhu, all of these we have already spoken many times. So we won't do the analysis. Instead, we will just touch upon those. But before we jump in, let us take a look at this, especially the first line of the shloka. In the previous shloka, what did Bhagavan say? Bhagavan says, Nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavakaha, na chainam kledayantyapah, na shoshayati marutah. So this is what he had said in the previous shloka. And in the first line, almost the same. Instead of chindanti, nainam chindanti shastrani, he says achedyaha. Right? The nainam dahati pavakaha adahyah. Na kledayantyapah akledyah. Na shoshayati. Then he says ashoshya. Basically, it is kind of a direct repetition of what was seen in the previous shloka. So we need to understand why or what is the concept behind this repetition. Here, the concept in the first line is kind of in the active voice. In the second shloka, we are going to see the same thing in the passive voice. Deham or deh is okay. This is like the adahyah. So for that, I was just thinking about it. So I just wrote it down here to say that the deham, body, which we very commonly use in our day-to-day life also, is coming from this property, dahyam, right? Dahyam means to that which can be burnt. And because the body is something that can be burnt, the body is called as deha. Right. So we can also apply it to other fours also, achedyam, adahyam, right, akledyam and ashoshyam. We can also attach it, but that is not the way that the body is referred to, but the body is referred to as deham because it can be burnt. So this is more of a side note. But let us go for the further analysis on why this should not be categorized as a Punarukti dosha. You guys know that, right? Punarukti dosha is the same thing being repeated over and over again. This Punarukti dosha is not considered a dosha if it meets certain rules. And whenever there is a Punarukti that you see in Shastra or a repetition that is seen in Shastra, apply these rules to find out. So we will try to get a little deeper into that concept. Nityaha, eternal, exists at all times. This is the second line. Sarvagataha, and because it is nityaha, it is sarvagataha. Right? Means it is at all times there, and hence it is seen as going everywhere. A literal meaning is goes everywhere, right? But it goes everywhere because the next word itself is declining that. It is thanuhu, doesn't it? It is immovable, right? So for something to be going everywhere and be permanent, the nature must be like a sky, right? It doesn't move. Only the boundaries are shifted. So that is also a qualification to say that, hey, nityaha, and because it is nityaha, it is sarvagataha. And because it is sarvagataha, it is tanuhu, right? That which does not move. For something to move, there must be a space. And that space is not there. Even that space is occupied by this concept called as Parabrahma. And hence, the sthanu and sarvagataha are put together. Now here, there is one thing that we do make, like an offering that we are making, prasad chadana, right? We make various types of prasad and offer it to the God. But the God doesn't consume, right? So for that we say it is because of this property. For consumption, there must be a space. If a concept is full, now there can be nothing else that can be added to it. Consumption is a process of adding something to something. that addition is not possible. And that is why the prasad that we are offering is not consumed, is not seen to be consumed by Bhagavan. Right? But then what is prasad for? Why is it that we should give the prasad? Prasad is the means for you to realize that it is not God is limited by space, but your thought has limited God into a space. Offering the prasad is an exercise that will elevate you to the realization that I am not the consumer, but the body is. Right? So and that the body is feasting on that which is part of the whole. This is another concept. Like when I do this prasad, the whole point is inside me, I bring about, or I should bring about a realization that it is from the whole, from the entirety, from the oneness of all, I consume. And I consume because I am divided. That awareness to be brought. And that is the reason why we offer the prasad. A good example will be, right, whenever a guru comes, I stand up, right? And once I'm receiving a call from guru, I'm just picking up the phone and I'm standing up, right? It is that reverence, that devotion, that respect that you show to your guru will naturally come into you. And this can happen in two ways. One, you have the reverence, then it will reflect in the action. Number two, I do not have the complete reverence yet, but I have that respect. I feel that that is good. But when you start doing this, that reverence will come into you. So an action can lead into attitude, and an attitude will result in an action. So if you want the attitude to change, the action is something that you can adopt before even the attitude comes, which will guide you to get to that attitude sooner. And this you can apply to everything. Right? So when you are fearless, this is the action that I am doing. Do that action over and over again, then you will become fearless from all situations. So that is the beauty of, or that is the kind of relationship between action and attitude. So what is the prasad? Prasad is an action that we develop, that we promote in ourselves in order for the attitude in us to change. And what is the change that we are looking at? To see that everything is one, and that my dependence is not on me, it is on everything. That entirety being understood, the Vishwarupam being seen. And that is the reason why we offer prasad. Achalaha, from one point of view, it means the same as Thanuhu, one which does not have a movement. However, contextually, this is attributed to a karma that we do, akriyaha. Right? This indicates a non-doership in the term called as Atma, in Paramatma. So, for an action, again, the same thing applies. There must be a space for an action to be taken, to be, performed. And with that which is full will have no action. That way also we can see it. Sanatanaha means anadi, that which does not have the beginning, as in one which exists at all times. So this is the base analysis of this shloka. Now we will go into the deeper aspect. Okay. Now, an object or any object we have seen is that it is limited by desam, kalam, and vastu. We call it as desa, kala, vastu, parichedaha. right? This mouse, it is here today. Tomorrow it may not be there. So it is limited by time, right? This is limited by the space that it is currently occupying. It is on top of a table. It is in this particular size and form, right? So the being in this particular place refers to the desam. And it has got a black color. It is small. It is, handy. It is comfortable. All these attributions are vastu, properties. So based on these three, objects are limited. But because we are establishing that Bhagavan is not having any limit, we are talking about the Bhagavan being the subject. Aham Brahmasmi. So that subject is what we call as I. The Punarukti. That is what I initially told you. To say the same thing again is not a Punarukti. But from one point of view, it can be seen as Upasamhara. There are some traditions which speak about it, saying that it is not a Punarukti because it is an Upasamhara. It is a conclusion. So headline and the ending conclusion will be repeated and the middle will be elaborated. That is what the news reading style used to be, if you remember. So it is a general concept that we start with an introduction, we end with a conclusion, in which case there will be a repetition. And because this is an upasamharam, it is a conclusion, in accordance with that nyayam, we cannot attribute this to be punarukti. When is it that we can say it is not a punarukti? These are all the main reasons. One is anuvada, reiteration, which is done for the purpose of emphasis, right? That is not called as punarukti. In fact, there are places where if it is an important shloka, we repeat it twice. Even in Vishnu Sahasranama, we do that. Right? So there are various traditions which do it. But yes, if in case it is a very important concept, we will repeat that. So for Anuvadam, it is basically to create an emphasis. If a thing is said again, then it is not considered as Punarukti. Then the Arthāntara-prasakti, shift to a related sense. Prasakti means connection or a relevance. Artha means the Artha is the meaning, right? We use it. Iska kya artha hai karke, right? That is what is the meaning of it. And antara is different. Okay, so if there is going to be a reason where a different meaning has to be conveyed, there we can use the Punarukti. Right? Basically, if I have to imply a different meaning, that repetition is allowed. And you will see that it is built within the context as well. Now, non-doability, akartṛtva. No element can act upon the Ātman. That is the first one. Then refutes the karaka vedam. There is no relationship to an object. Karakam, an agent. So, the term karakam is used where if in case a potter is using a wheel, that wheel becomes the karakam, an instrument which enables the production of the pot. For the pot, the only thing that is needed is clay. But if you do not have a wheel, you cannot create a pot. The wheel helps in the process of creating the pot, but is not part of the pot in whatsoever form. This is called as karakam, that instrument which helps, aids in the process of creation of something is called as karaka. In the active voice, akartṛtva was kind of emphasized. Here, because the same thing is told in the passive voice, here the intent is to refuse the karaka vedam, that there is no relationship between the object and the subject. They are independent of one another. For emphasizing this, we say it is not a punarukti. As I'm speaking, the thought also comes to me, if it is two, then isn't Dvaitam correct? And that is the place Advaita comes in and says, yes, Dvaitam is correct. But in this Dvaitam, one of the truth that you are seeing is a very mithya-based, a very illusionary expression. It is not a real expression. It doesn't have a solid state at any time. It keeps moving, it keeps changing. Right, so you cannot attribute a sattvam, because the sattvam, it is dependent on the other element, which is the Ātman. That is the reason why that is the way that we interpret Satyasa Satyam also. Right, and again, if in case you go into others like, Vishishtadvaita or Dvaita, you will see their way of interpretation and their justification will be based on this, to say that there is a very clear akartṛtva and karaka veda. We can see that there is a two that is established. Right, so what is it, Dvasu Parana, that mantra they will quote, and they say very clearly it is said two. Right, so yes, it is two. That is not being refuted at all. But one of the truth is not an independent truth. For something to be a truth, it must be independent of everything. There is another rule for that. Based on that rule, we cannot call this as a truth, but it is experienced by us, and hence there is an element of truth in that. So the definition that the Advaita gives is the other truth that you are seeing, which has a dependent existence, is a mithya, that which appears as though it exists, but it does not have an existence of its own. So that is the way that the discussions are taken. Now, we have spoken about ontology, the study of truth. I know, for example, Prabhakar might not have come to that particular class, but after we first concluded Bhagavad Gita, we took up something called as Brahma Sutra. As part of the initial Brahma Sutra, we had spoken about the study of truth, ontology. In Vedic terms, it is called as Satta-traya Vibhagam. Incidentally, we had taken this as a concept and did some deep analysis during the Vishnu Sahasranama class as well. And it is very beautiful to see that the modern ontology uses the same concepts that we have been studying for generations. Describes the intrinsic indestructibility, the self's inherent attribute. This is called as Swabhava Nirupana. Okay, as in the inherent or the intrinsic quality of one's nature. This is what is established when the same thing is said in a passive voice. Right? What it does is it establishes an ontological independence, swatantratvam. So I told you, right, with respect to Prakṛti, in the two elements that we spoke about, the object has a dependent existence on the subject. whereas subject is independent of the object. The subject has no dependence on the object. There is a very famous Shanti mantra which we say towards the end. Purnam ataha purnamidam purnat purnamudachyate. Right? But what the second line is very important. Purnasya, from that object, Purnam, they say object is also wholesome. But if from that object the wholesome is removed, the subject continues to exist. Right? Purnameva avasishyate. Right? So that is the way that the Veda has established it. The point is, in repetition, while in the first one, it was to say that the objects do not have an impact on the subject. In the second one, while saying it as the passive voice, it is not only saying that, but also establishing that it is independently true at all times. So that is the meaning that is established in this Punarukti, or in this repetition, though it is not a repetition. Though we very clearly understand that given the rules of Punarukti, it is not a Punarukti, but it may seem to be repetition. That repetition is analyzed and established to say that it cannot be considered a repetition because of this. So, a nice concept actually. In Vedanta, we call the same thing as Tatastha Lakshana and Swarupa Lakshana. Tatastha Lakshana is by negation of an external feature. Even in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, you will see Neti, Neti. Right? After removal of everything, what remains is the subject. That is the Tatastha Lakshana. And Swarupa Lakshana is by its intrinsic attributes, that it is Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. Right? These things are the Swarupa Lakshana. While the verse 23 was providing Tatastha Lakshana, verse 24 is providing a Swarupa Lakshana. Further, we also called as Neti Lakshana and Astiti Lakshana. This is again, when you are coming to my house, see, there will be a big, banyan tree. Don't turn the left, which is immediately after that. Just follow, and the second left you turn. We are saying this. Now, what we have done is, first we are saying Neti Lakshana. Don't turn there. It is very important, because 10 people who have come to my house would have turned on that left side, because it is a little confusing maybe. If you, I'm just giving it as a random example that comes to my mind now, right? And I live in the United States and there is no banyan tree. But the idea is to say that for creating a pointer, either you can go through the Neti Lakshana, Na Iti Lakshana, or Asti Iti Lakshana. This is it. So no, the second one, now you have the count. Right? So count from the tree kind of a stuff. So that is allowing you to recognize the path that you need to take clearly. In this expression, we attribute the 23rd to Neti Lakshana, that the weapons cannot cut, this cannot do, etc. Astiti Lakshana is the affirmation to say that it is uncuttable. Not only that weapons cannot cut it, it is uncuttable. So that difference it establishes. In Vishishta Dvaita, the soul's permanence and immovability stem from its dependence. Right? Sheshatvam, Shesham, we know that, right? So part of it. So basically, Angam Angi relationship is what Vishishtadvaita establishes. It exists for him and hence shares his permanence, is the way that they say. So the object exists for him, for the Bhagavan or for the Atma, and hence the object also share its permanence. And it's a very good way of putting it also, right? Because there are very clear indications to say that both Prakriti and Purusha are anadi. We will see it in Bhagavad Gita itself. And they will be pointing it from that point of view. It is fully agreed in the Advaita Parampara. It is not negated. The only thing that Advaita says is, yes, it is so, but there is no dependence between the two, which is established by Bhagavan's own words. So those are all kind of nice discussions and debates that we can have. And we all know that nobody is there to teach Atma Gyan. They are there to point out the Atma Gyan and the travel you do by yourself. In the Dvaitam, right, they say that in the 23rd Shloka, the Nityatvam, the eternality is established. And in the 24th, it represents the Apakatvam, which is pervasiveness of the God. The emphasis is given that there is that this is applicable only to the Jivan. They differentiate this, classifying that Jivan is eternal and immovable in a sense, but not all pervading as is applicable to the God. So they start differentiating between the two. Okay, so that is the way that they are looking at it. And if you pay attention, maybe there is a very convincing argument which puts it in that way as well. If it helps to somebody, all good for you. Right? The path is yours for you to explore. What you will reach is the Advaitam. Not because it is a philosophy, not because it is a school. This Advaitam that we are talking about is inseparability with the God. Not the philosophy, not the line of teaching. That's why I always say, Advaitam, if you take it as one of the ways of teaching, then it is the same as Dvaitam or Visishtadvaitam. No big difference. But if you attribute it as the characteristic, then it is absolute and it is where everyone goes ultimately. So proceeding to the Bhāṣyam, Acharya says, because elements like fire, water, and air, which normally destroys the things, cannot destroy the self. The self is declared to be eternal. Since the self is eternal, it is also all-pervading. It is everywhere. And because it is all-pervading, it is firm and stable, sthanuhu. Due to this stability, it is called as achalaha. So he creates the meaning for the second line by establishing a connection between each of the characteristics represented here. And this can only be Sanatana. For such a thing to exist, it has to be Sanatana, it has got to be eternal, without ever being newly created. It was never produced by any cause and is not something new, is the way that Acharya gives the meaning for this shloka. All the analysis that we have done is based on this particular line from Acharya. Further, Acharya says, na yesham, so na yethesham, one might think, aren't these ideas getting repeated again and again across multiple verses? The answer, we already seen, no. Because although the essence that the self is eternal, it is changeless, etc., was already mentioned earlier in the verse, na jayate mriyate va. That is what he quotes to say that he is taking this Punarukti not only from the point of view of the first line, but also with all of them, right? The nature of the self is so subtle and hard to grasp that Bhagavan Vasudeva Krishna rephrases the same ideas in different words repeatedly, so that the worldly people like us who are bound in samsara can understand it better and gain the liberation. So Śaṅkarācārya has not really spoken from the depth of what we had discussed from the Punarukti point of view for this. There are other places where he has established Punarukti from those point of views, but in this, for this shloka, he has not taken it. But in tradition, we always, because this is the most apparent, repetition between the 23rd and the 24th shloka, first line, it is a very clear kind of a repetition. So in tradition, we take it up to explain that this is not, and we also introduce the concept of Punarukti for this particular series of classes. And similarly, there will be there are few shlokas, right? But one of them, which is very, very clear negation, will also come in the 9th chapter. Matsthani sarva bhutani nachaham teshvavastitah nacha matsthani bhutani. So matsthani sarva bhutani. Everything exists in me. And then I don't exist there. The first line, you can just see, if in case you have written it in 2-line script, you will see the second line exactly contradicts. Nacha matsthani bhutani. What was there? Matsthani bhutani. Here it is nacha matsthani bhutani. Direct contradiction. Right? And there is a very deep sense, there is a very deep meaning, and we will look at that also. So these are all ways of expressions which is so beautiful in the Vedanta. Moving on to the 25th shloka. Avyaktoyamachintyoyam avikaryoyamuchyate tasmadevam viditvainam nanushochitumarhasi. So again, as I said, 24 and 25th are conclusions. Here, avyaktaha, unmanifested, I am, this Atma, this soul. Achintyaha is inconceivable, I am, this Atma. Avikaryaha, one that does not change, I am. Uchyate is told so. Tasmad evam, tasmad, therefore, evam, in this way, viditvainam. Viditva is knowing, enam refers to the Atma, of the self, of the soul, right? Developing an understanding of the Atma in this way, na anushochitum arhasi. It is not worthy, or it doesn't deserve to be lamented upon. That is the meaning of this shloka, a direct meaning. So, avyaktaha, it is the term that we use is called as indriya agocharam. The emphasis here is through sensory perception, one cannot see or feel or hear. Right? So that is the concept that is established here. Now this leads to the question, can it then be conceptualized in the mind or intellect? There are things like, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling, angry. So these things, there is nothing that we can see. It is typically in the mind, right? So that is, can it be conceptualized through the process of thought? Love, anger, happiness, right? They can only, such a possibility does not exist. That is why Bhagavan has said, achintya. It cannot be thought from that point of view. If that is the case, you cannot see it, you cannot know it from your heart also. What does the Shastra teach? This is again a very important concept. Now, it is a common practice. Whatever you do, you will see that there are two kinds of awareness that one has about anything. One is an experience about something called as anubhavam, anubhava jnanam. The other is the knowledge about the same, which is the scientific, right? Vijnanamaya jnanam. Now, we give the example of light bulb. The experience is when I turn the switch on, the light spreads in the room. The knowledge is this is the experience, right? The switch establishes a potential difference which allows the electricity to flow through, and the element will glow and then spread the light, etc. This becomes, a little scientific or has got a different perspective. Turning the switch on and the light glows is your experience, anubhavam. But having the knowledge of what is exactly it is, how it works, or what it is, in a different perspective, in a scientific perspective, is the other one. So we have anubhava jnanam, and also we have the subject knowledge. We have the knowledge about that particular concept. With respect to the self, we all have the anubhava jnana. Everybody knows switch, they turn it on and the light will glow. Or I walk by and the light has glown. Right? If it is a move, if it has got a sensor in it. That I exist is an anubhavam which nobody can deny. It requires no one else to tell that I am alive. It requires nothing of my body part to say I am alive. Just because my hands are working, I am alive. No, that is not the case. Even if in case my hands are chopped off, I am still there. That I exist is beyond all the parts of the body. That is one thing. But what is this I? That is the knowledge that Shastra gives you. When you get these two together, then it opens up the moksha, the path of liberation for you. This is just to open the doors and generate an interest to learn. Shastra speaks of 3 or 4 kinds of anubhavam. Okay, right. So when we talk of anubhavam, in Shastra we have, everything is so beautifully analyzed in our Vedantic tradition, actually. In the not just Vedic tradition, I would say, even in Sankhya or Nyaya, the Indian tradition has done so much of analysis. I think the whole world definitely is indebted to that. In this instance, when I had said anubhavam, there is something rasa anubhavam, which could be further classified as artha rasa anubhavam and kama rasa anubhavam. Right? So when you are talking about anubhavam, there are 2 kinds. One is about the rasam, means the taste of it, the utility of it. That utility of it is something which is basic or something which is creative in nature. Right? So that is the kind of anubhavam that we have. And again, there are more, which is bhakti anubhavam and atma anubhavam. So we were talking about 2 kinds of awareness. One is an experience about something, and another is the knowledge about something. Right? The descriptive knowledge, the actual, the core knowledge, the swarupa knowledge. What Shastra does is to provide you this swarupa knowledge, which goes with your anubhavam of the I, bringing you to the self-awareness, the awareness of the soul, the knowledge about the Ātman, Atma-jnana. Right? And then I had just deviated a little bit to say that Shastra speaks. Even in the Anubhavam, it talks about Rasa Anubhavam, Bhakti Anubhavam, and Atma Anubhavam. Right? So in this, we were discussing about even the Rasa Anubhavam has 2. Right? One is called as based on the Artham. right, based on the purpose, the necessity of it, right, Artha Rasa Anubhavam and Kama Rasa Anubhavam, which is based on certain creativity, desires, the feelings and stuff like that. So there are various classifications that we go through. And I was telling that this is not the subject matter to be discussed for this shloka. We will skip and move on, but this can be discussed maybe when we go into Shrimad Bhagavatam or other kind of Puranas, where the bhakti is going to be coming out as a very high rasam, and there we introduce those kind of rasams actually. Going further, avikriya, right? Avikriya does not undergo a change, that it is not a product. Uchyate, right? Avyaktoyam achintyoyam avikaryoyam uchyate. Right, here's the avikarya, does not undergo a change. Uchyate is said to be so. So always the question comes up as to where is it said? And that is where we point out to the Upanishads. Right, the Upanishads, and it can be emphasized with the fact that we had the shloka number 19 and 20 directly taken from the Upanishads to indicate that this jnana, this knowledge, is coming to us from the Upanishads. And then concludes Atma-gyan, basically establishing there is no reason to feel sorrow based on the Atma getting destroyed. Tasmad evam viditva enam na anushochitum arhasi. Anushochitum, getting inflicted by sorrow. Right? Anu is following, as in, given the circumstances, feeling the sorrow towards it. That is the reason the prefix called as anu is added here. Na arhasi. Na is not arhasi, you are worthy, it is worthy of, you deserve to. You ought to, you should. The term you is coming because arhasi is used in second person singular, right? So again, the grammar comes into place here. There are four concepts that we attach to this word. Worthiness expresses the merit. Fitness, the appropriateness. Obligation, the moral or logical reasoning for feeling so. And entreaty. This is not applicable in this case, in this instance, where it is used to say, right, from a pleading point of view, in a gentle form, used in a respectful way, right? If you see that I deserve it, please let me know. I will do. Or let me know, pass it on to me, kind of a stuff. So that is the place also the arhasi is used. So the term arhat is used in all these four concepts, and three of them are directly applicable to Arjuna in this shloka. This is also something that we had seen earlier. There are three vikalpas that Bhagavan takes. First, it started with sorrow. Arjuna has a sorrow. He doesn't know what to do, so he says, tell me what to do. So first thing he does is, your sorrow is based on what? It is based on Atma. It is based on Anatma. It is based on Dharma. And he negates each of them. Up to this point, he has negated based on Atma. So in this shloka, this concept gets concluded here. A small recap. In the shloka number 12, Bhagavan told that Atma is Nityaha. In shloka number 13, Nirvikaraha. 14 and 15, if you remember, it was a deviation into Anatma. In the 16, he comes back where he establishes that Atma is Satsvarupam, Satyaha. Then in the 17th shloka, he established that Atma is Sarvagataha, goes everywhere, all-pervading. The shloka number 18, that it is Kutastha Nityam and Aprameyam. The Nityatvam was further qualified, and it was established that it is not something that can be seen through a praman. In the 19th shloka, the akarta abhokta as a concept was introduced on Atma, that I am neither a doer nor an experiencer of that which is done. In the shloka number 20, it is Shad Vikara Rahitaha. Asti, Jayate, Vardate, Viparinamate, Apakshiyate, Vinashyate. Right? So these 6 qualities are not applicable to the Atma. This was established in the shloka number 21. 20. In the shloka number 21, he establishes that Atma is na hetu karta. Okay, it doesn't do. Maybe it is inducing the body to do. That is also not true. It is not a hetu karta. It doesn't induce something to be done, nor does it do by itself. It provides the base for the Prakṛti to function. 22 to 25 was a recap. That is why we saw some of them being repeated and concluded in this shloka. In our next class, we will briefly get into Bhāṣyam and go into the subsequent shloka.
I don't have question, Nashkar. I don't have question, but during the conversation, it came across to me. To overcome the fear of death, we should outlive the utility of our aham, our body, our swan, is something which came to me, came to my mind. Is that a right way of thinking?
We may have to qualify the term outlive. What do you mean by outlive?
To overcome fear of death, I should say, no, don't worry. You have completed the duty with which you came in. That you have fulfilled the duty.
Beautiful question, actually. The way that Bhagwan will say this is, a person who has got to this particular knowledge will have a realization that everything that is required to be done has already been done. When Bhagwan will speak in the next chapter, he will use this as a direct statement. So long as you chase it, right, that, outlive, that is why I was asking the question. It is more verb, more of an action. And the problem is, so long as you chase, there is no end. At the age of 100, you will say, man, my body has become so weak, everything is paining, right? Jaldi se jana hai, bas, without any creating trouble for anybody, I should go, is the way that they will speak. If tomorrow Bhagwan comes and takes me, I'll be the most glad person. Incidentally, if the Bhagwan does come tomorrow, you will suddenly remember, next week is my son's birthday, my grandson's birthday. So let me just live up to that time and then go. So that desire will never stop when you are chasing. When you realize what is the truth, that whatever we have spoken about in the entire class, the basic knowledge that we are trying to share is that the Prakrti is a continuum of functions, and there is no attribution of Atma in it. Atma has provided the base and stands as a witness for the Prakrti's changes. I have been stupid enough to say that I am part of the Prakrti and I have been running with it. But actually, I am the Atma, I am the base. When you get this realization, no vikar, no change will have an impact on you. Which means you are not going to go after the death, and you are not going to be afraid of the death as well. Death is another change that is happening. Right? Even if this body dies, the change will continue to happen. Right? And I will continue to be the base for this particular change to happen. When this realization strikes, the outliving, which is the word that you were talking of, has already taken place. This knowledge will bring about this concept of outliving the pursuit that we are having. It doesn't mean we'll become actionless. It means we will attribute the action to the Prakriti, and we will continue to put our support to that as the base for the Prakriti to function. Does it make sense?
Yeah, very, very.
Thank
and
you.
that also brings me to the next question. Maybe we don't have time yet. The next question is, then what is the value add?
Value added to what?
Added to the Prakriti by the me being.
No, see, Prakriti's existence in itself is something that has been given by the Ātman. If Ātma was not there, the Prakriti would have no existence at all. So what is the purpose or what is the value add is a wrong question. But a better question may be, what is the purpose of this? The thing is, at a Prakritic level, to have a stability, it has to undergo a change continuously. And enabling that change to go through is the role of the Ātman. That which comes in between is the Jivan. What has happened is when these Prakritic changes were going on, an amsam of the Atma thought, hey, this change is not correct. And the moment it thinks, it has thought because it has attached itself to that Prakritic amsam. And after that, it continues to traverse. Now, this liberation is getting released from the darkness of getting attached to the Prakriti and becoming the base of the Prakriti again. Instead of me thinking that I am the Prakriti, I realizing that I am the Ātman is the purpose of what we are learning. And the purpose of Prakriti is also that only. That is when we talk about the Kshetra Paripalana and Dharma Rakshana. We will talk about it a lot when we get into the deeper portions of Bhagavad Gita. We will speak about it again. But that will clarify what is the purpose of the Jivan in this Prakritic changes. Prakritic changes were happening. And the Jivan tried to come and accumulate things into of the Prakriti and started creating a separation of even the Prakriti and also the Ātman. That ignorance is the cause of all the suffering, not the changes. The suffering is an experience. An experience can only happen through a Chaitanyam. The Chaitanyam is undergoing a suffering. That suffering will be liberated. Okay, but the Prakriti will continue. That is Anadhi. It will continue to change. It is just that your limited association with the Prakriti will just expand into the entire Prakriti by itself. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
I don't think so.
No, it is so huge, and I need a lot of this one to actually get this thing seep into.
Correct. Mark it as a question, and maybe the next week class, we will spend a little more on trying to explain. Right. So this one is, I was trying to just touch upon it, but there is a lot more Vedantic way of explaining it. But your questions on the purpose is the most important one that needs to be understood. So feel free to bring it next week. Or if you need a little more time, take your time, but definitely raise it and we will discuss about it. Thank you, Prabha. Harihi Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat.